Imagine stepping into two worlds on a Sunday morning, one hushed and orderly, the other alive with raw emotion and unfiltered praise. That's the essence comedian Barry Brewer captures in his hilarious routine, where he strums his guitar and sings about the stark contrast between white church and black church. White church Jesus, he quips, is calm, peaceful, real chill. Black church Jesus? He's been through some things and you go and feel it. But behind the laughs lies a profound truth, rooted in centuries of American history, pain, resilience, and unyielding faith. This is the story of how two branches of the same tree grew worlds apart, shaping not just worship, but the soul of a nation. It all begins in the shadowed holds of slave ships crossing the Atlantic in the 17th century. Enslaved Africans, ripped from their ancestral spiritual traditions, encountered Christianity through their captors. White Protestant churches, dominant in the colonies, preached a gospel twisted to justify bondage, citing scriptures like the Curse of Ham to claim divine sanction for slavery. Enslaved people were herded into segregated lofts or galleries in these white sanctuaries, forbidden from full participation, their voices silenced, their bodies policed. Yet, in those dim corners, seeds of resistance took root. They blended Yoruba rhythms and ring shouts with hymns, creating a faith that whispered freedom even as chains clanked. By the late 18th century, as the American Revolution stirred cries for liberty, black worshippers began carving out their own spaces. In Philadelphia, 1787, Richard Allen, a free black preacher, founded the Free African Society, a mutual aid group that evolved into the African Methodist Episcopal Church in 1816. Why? Because in a white Methodist church, ushers dragged Allen from his knees mid-prayer. For daring to worship alongside whites, this wasn't just about seating, it was defiance against a system that viewed black souls as lesser. Across the South, hidden brush arbor meetings sprang up under moonlight, where coded spirituals like "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot" masked plans for escape on the Underground Railroad. Harriet Tubman, that fierce conductor of freedom, drew strength from these clandestine gatherings, turning prayer into plot. Fast forward to the 19th century, and the divide deepens with Emancipation's bitter aftertaste. The Civil War ends in 1865, freeing 4 million souls, but white churches, complicit in the peculiar institution, doubled down on control. Southern Baptists split in 1845 over slavery, forming a denomination that defended it fiercely until a tepid apology in 1995. Black congregants, meanwhile, flood into independent denominations. The African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church, born in 1821, and the Colored Methodist Episcopal Church in 1870 become beacons. By 1895, the National Baptist Convention unites over 3 million members, the largest black organization in America. Economically, these churches weren't just pulpits, they were banks, schools, and hospitals. In a world denying black credit, congregations pooled pennies for widow funds and orphanages, birthing institutions like Wilberforce University in 1856, the first black-owned college. Culturally, the chasm in worship styles mirrors the chasm in lived experience. White services, influenced by European formality, unfold with measured hymns from pipe organs, scripted sermons, and pews of quiet reflection. Think of the staid rituals in New England congregational churches where theology trumped testimony. Black churches, forged in the fire of oppression, pulse with African polyrhythms and call and response, where the preacher's fire meets the congregation's thunderous amens. Gospel music erupts here. Thomas Dorsey, the father of gospel, blends blues with blues in the 1930s, turning "Precious Lord, Take My Hand" into an anthem of endurance. Politically, while white churches often aligned with the status quo, endorsing segregation laws like Plessy-Verst, Ferguson in 1896, black pulpits became war rooms for justice. Frederick Douglass thundered from Baltimore pulpits in the 1840s, decrying slavery as sin. Ida B. Wells, lynching crusader, found her moral footing in Memphis's black congregations. Enter the 20th century, where the black church ignites the fuse of civil rights. The Great Migration from 1910 to 1970 funnels millions of Southern blacks into northern cities, swelling urban sanctuaries like Chicago's Olivet Baptist, a hub for job training amid factory booms and redlining's economic stranglehold. Technologically, radio amplifies the message. Reverend C.L. Franklin's sermons on Detroit's airwaves in the 1940s reached thousands, his daughter Aretha later channeling that soul into global hits. But it's the 1950s and 60s that etch the black church into eternity. Rosa Parks, a NAACP secretary at Montgomery's Dexter Avenue Baptist, sparks the 1955 bus boycott. Martin Luther King Jr., that prophetic voice from Atlanta's Ebenezer Baptist, weaves non-violence with biblical thunder, leading the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, born in 1957, from church basements. White churches. Many stand silent or hostile. Southern white clergy defend Jim Crow, while northern ones offer polite prayers, but scant action. Birmingham's 1963 church bombing kills 4 girls, a stark symbol of the divide, yet from the ashes, black faith rises fiercer. Economically, the black church counters systemic barriers. During the Depression, it feeds the hungry when New Deal programs sideline blacks. Post-war, as suburbs bloom for whites on GI Bill loans denied to veterans of color, black churches fund community centers and credit unions. Politically, they mobilize voters. The 1965 Voting Rights Act owes debts to pulpits that registered thousands. Globally, this model ripples outward. In South Africa, black theology inspires anti-apartheid fighters. Desmond Tutu calls the black church's liberation ethos a blueprint. Even in Latin America, base communities echo its communal power. Technologically today, live streams from megachurches like T.D. Jakes' Potter's House blend Zoom sermons with TikTok testimonies, bridging digital divides while white churches experiment with VR prayer apps. Yet for all the progress, the scars linger. Barry Brewer's jest about that been through some things, Jesus isn't just comedy, it's theology, born of trauma. White churches grapple with their complicity. Recent reckonings like the Episcopal Church's 2006 Slavery Reparations Fund signal slow awakening. Black churches, meanwhile, navigate internal tensions, prosperity gospels clashing with prophetic calls, youth drifting to secular activism. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed fractures, virtual services widened generational gaps, while economic fallout hit black congregations hardest, losing tithes from jobless flocks. So what endures? In a nation still wrestling with racial reckonings, from Charlottesville's tiki torches in 2017 to ongoing police reform cries, the black church remains a fortress of unbowed heads, reminding us that faith isn't passive. White churches, with their reflective calm, offer a counterpoint, introspection as ally to action. Together they challenge America to live its creed. Barry Brewer laughs to keep from crying, but his tune urges us deeper. What if we bridge this divide, not to dilute the fire, but to warm the whole house? In the end, perhaps the real difference isn't between black and white church. It's between a faith that forgets history and one that sings it alive. The choice, as always, is ours.